Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video I'm going to have the latest from the live radar, from the latest UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days as we've got high pressure slap bang over the top of us for the rest of this week. It is going to keep it very dry, hopefully a little bit warm as well when the sun does come out. Temperature's not going to be too exceptional, but high teens is a possibility over the coming days. But yeah, it's the dry conditions that I think we're all going to feel. It is going to be pretty abnormal for mid-October when we start to associate the days with stormy patterns, unsettled conditions as we head towards Halloween. Not going to see that at all over the next week or so. It's going to be very dry, very pleasant, and almost a little bit reminiscent of summer if that sun does get going. However, that could all change as we progress later on into October. We've been talking about this for a number of days. We continue to see a lot of uncertainty in the positioning of the high into the middle to second half of the month. At the moment, we are still seeing conflicting thoughts from the operation runs and the ensembles, definitely with the GFS on board with high pressure sticking around before eventually being unlocked by the Atlantic, or at least not building northwards. The ECMWF, which some would argue is the more reliable run, is continuing to build that high to our north and our west, and today's midday run is showing a very cold north or northeasterly wind to end, and there is got pretty good support from its ensembles for a chillier pattern, so it is going to be a very interesting watch over the coming days. And of course we'll look at the latest runs in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy the videos, do like and subscribe. Now, if we start on the live radar, you see not too much going on once again this evening. Calling this a little bit later, a bit after 10 PM, so apologies if it's a little bit late up this evening. You can see a few odd showers, but nothing really going on. And again, if we put on the temperatures, it is a little bit chilly out there tonight, especially towards the centre of the high, but generally speaking, it's not too bad. Temperatures around average or above average overnight, and will continue to hold like that during the day. Now, if you look at the latest UKV, you can see there's been a bit of rain earlier this afternoon, but generally speaking, the clouds should slowly clear over the next few days. Still pretty cloudy there on Thursday, but where the sun comes out will be decent. A few bits of drizzle and cloud into Friday, but you can start to see the sun breaking through. And you see that's more and more apparent during Saturday. Look at that, lots of sunshine across England and Wales, and into Sunday as well. Bit of an easterly breeze potentially starting to develop there, which could drag on a little bit of cloud from the North Sea, but generally speaking, still very pleasant. A few odd showers, but for most, it's looking pretty bone dry and pretty decent conditions there as we head into next week. If we look at the upper air temperatures, you can see they are initially pretty mild, but some fresher air could come in from the northeast. As ever, we get these little northeasterly winds. They are going to be a little bit chilly, but hopefully nothing too crazy, just generally more of an average air mass pushing in. Temperatures this afternoon, quite mild in the south, 16, 17. Further north it's a bit cooler, but not too bad. Into Thursday, there's a similar story, 16, 17, 18 possibly. And into Friday, a bit chilly overnight, where we see temperatures falling away around the centre of the high. But again, into the afternoon, look at that, 16, 17 degrees. Saturday is a chilly start, but temperatures do quickly rise, and by Saturday afternoon, once again, 16 to maybe 18 degrees. And into Sunday, another chilly start, but by the afternoon, once again, up towards the high teens, and the same can be said for Monday. So yes, perhaps some chilly, colder nights, nothing too crazy, no frosts or anything, or at least no widespread frost, maybe in a few isolated patches, but it's going to be a little bit cold, but by the afternoon, the sun will come out. Again, it's just a symptom of seeing a high pressure system this time of year, with the longer nights and the slowly cooling air masses, and of course the weaker sunshine allows those temperatures to dip away further overnight, and yeah, that's what we're seeing here, quite a big diurnal range coming in the next 5 days or so. I suspect this could continue into next working week as well. High pressure is firmly in control, and you can see once it builds in directly over the top of us in the next couple of days, that's when we start to see the drier conditions more widely and more sunshine breaking through. You can see next week there is an attempt to push northwards from this GFS run. Has a real go, but does get distorted by the Atlantic. And by the end of the run, we do see a pretty cold pattern evolving, but the block is well to our northwest, and that means the cold air gets pushed into Greenland. And you see that by the temperature deviation, that cold air is getting pushed through Greenland into the North Atlantic, cold air down Eastern Europe as well, and we're in this little milder wedge. So although it is quite a cold evolution, generally speaking, over the Arctic, and if we looked at like the NAO or the AO, it probably would indicate a colder pattern. You can see we are just in this wedge of milder air. This would be the sort of pattern if we saw during January, we'd feel quite hard done by if we did want a bit of snow, as this would mean everyone to our west, especially across parts of North America, would see probably a lot of snow. Eastern Europe we probably wouldn't see much at all. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of the GFS. Very similar pattern, but slightly different evolution means that in the end, it does go a little bit chillier before turning milder there later on into October. Now, unfortunately, we don't have the GM run today, as it's not run today. I don't know why. It must be an issue. Not on any website can I see it has run for Wednesday. So we won't just repeat yesterday's run. So we'll skip it for today, but hopefully it's back in the next couple of days. But we can look at the ECMWF, which, as I said at the start of the video, for some is the most reliable run, and definitely kind of medium range. I'd say it is more reliable than the GFS. GFS is sometimes right, but it is very volatile, and again, perhaps better than the ECMWF is the UK Met Office run or UKV, or kind of variations from the Met Office. Those are probably the highest regarded. So it is a pretty good run, this ECMWF, and you can see again, high pressure ridging northwards next week. Very similar to the GFS, very similar evolution. But look where that block goes. It doesn't go towards northern Canada. It stays towards Greenland. And look at this. We pull in a northeasterly wind. Low pressure riding the southern edge of this. And this would be a real snowmaker if we were in about 6 to 8 weeks' time. You've got cold northeasterly winds feeding Arctic air in. Very warm, mild air across Europe. We'd see some big weather fronts across the UK. You can see that here with these huge areas of precipitation spiralling in. And as I said, in wintertime, that would all be falling as snow. But you can see the temperatures are cold. You can see that mid to high single digits. So it is cold, and it will feel really cold in that rain. But it isn't quite cold enough. And you can see the air masses very cold just to our north, but in a few months' time, we won't see the -5 isotherm there. We'd probably see the -10 isotherm there, and the -5 isotherm would be interacting with this milder wedge, and that's when the risk of snow comes in. So a very interesting and a very cold evolution here, but it's late October, so nothing too untoward could come of it. You can see for the dew points as well, very cold dew points feeding in. Potentially, if this pattern evolved across Scotland, you can see the dew points are close to freezing. There's a risk of wintry precipitation. But you see further southwards, 2-3 degrees. And of course, we need freezing or below to see anything of a wintry nature. But yeah, a very interesting pattern from the ECMWF today. It's very similar to the GFS. It's just this block is much further eastwards and is not over northern Canada, where it would bring colder air to everyone on our latitude except us. Now, finally, look at the ensembles. If you look at the latest GFS, you can see the GFS ensembles is kind of in line with the operational run. Very dry, bone dry for the next 10 days, and then precipitation picks up a little bit beyond that. So we could see the Atlantic breaking through for a time. But you see generally the upper temperatures hovering around average, or actually slightly above average longer range, indicating not too many are going for a north or northeasterly airflow. Again, very interesting to see. 2 meters temperatures dropping off slowly, which is in line with the expectations as we do progress further later on into the autumn. And sea level pressure dropping as well, which is very, very interesting. Now, the ECMWF, on the other hand, is very different. Towards average or even below average later on. Precipitation, yes, does pick up, but with the colder air masses, it would be much chillier out there. Sea level pressure dipping off as well, but you can see operational on there. It's a cold run, but also has low pressure around, so perhaps undercuts there. And if we do look at the 2 meter temperatures, you can see another dip, but a little bit perhaps more pronounced than the GFS, and some much colder runs appearing longer range. Remember, we're looking at London here further northwards. Like if we put Glasgow on, for example, would be even colder, down to maybe only the high single digits there into late October. So some very interesting charts continuing to appear from both the operational runs and the ensembles today. But it's similar to the last few days. We've got no distinct answer, unfortunately. Just that high pressure is going to be involved, at least in the short to medium term. Longer term could be more of a distant blocking feature that could force something much colder and maybe exceptionally unsettled like that ECMWF run. Cold and unsettled there as we progress into late October. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. And I'll see you again for another video soon.